man, that was neat when he was talking about watching the Cubs on the Superstation with his grandfather. There's something about baseball and generational connection that always appeals, and man, that was just sensational stuff yesterday.
No, he was great. I was actually just texting with him and just talking about how well he represented the Cubs and himself and his family. I thought he did such a great job, and it was a nice personal touch. And I did feel throughout the negotiation, I got the sense when we met with him that I think it was important to him. I think he had a real desire to be in Chicago. I think Wrigley and the Cubs fans in Chicago were really appealing to him, and I think that sort of living here with his wife, who he just married 10, 12 days ago, was appealing. And I didn't even know the grandfather story, but it felt like this was a place that he had circled on the map, and that to me is really important. I think when you think about, we've all seen it when guys really want to go to a place, they're excited about their new destination. I think they play well and they embrace it, and when there's struggles, they fight through them. I think sometimes you see it when a free agent goes to a place for the wrong reasons, and maybe it wasn't the place he imagined, and I think that has a toll as well. So it's always nice to sign a player that we circled him, and he circled us, and that's a great fit.
Jed, when this was brought up yesterday, and I've been thinking about this for 24 hours now, when he asked you, why should I work for you? What was your answer?
Well, I mean, I think obviously some of that will stay private, but really what we talked about was, what our plan is to build something special. And I talked a lot about, what Theo and I did when we got here in 2011. And, obviously you always, every puzzle is different, but we talked about, the free agents that we plan to bring in and that we brought in last year. We talked about our minor league system, and we talked about, I think that those two things are starting to merge. And I think when they do merge really well, I think we're going to be really good for a long time. And I talked about how he, the way I see it is, the Braves did a really good job, going back sort of when we started to get really good in 2015 or 16, that was when they started their building process. And Dansby was a huge cornerstone of that with a lot of great young players. And I said, you were a young player and you were one of the building blocks of the Braves building process. And I said, let's come here and let's be the leader of one, not just be the young player, the young shortstop, but be a player that can lead that kind of building process and be, sort of at the head of something really special. And I think that really appealed to him. I think he takes leadership really seriously, from his reputation in Atlanta. I think he believes that's part of the job and part of what he's good at. And I think that was appealing to him, to having been a sort of a cog in a really good young team and hopefully leading one. I think he looked at his career that way. And if this is the second part where he gets to lead that, I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, I'm not like Zach. I don't look at things that way. The thing I kept thinking was, my God, how would you have felt if you didn't get this guy? Because it felt like everybody on earth wanted the Cubs to get one of the four shortstops. And it comes down to the end, and I just wonder, would that have ruined the offseason for you if you didn't have Dansby Swanson in the building and in the fold right now?
Well, I will say that, I had a certain level of confidence that this would get done. But certainly there was, I didn't necessarily know the order that the players were going to sign in, obviously. And, I'd be lying to say there wasn't some level of anxiety as guys went off the board, and as this market was certainly
wow,
inflationary, I guess is the best way to say it, probably. But yeah, I did have, like I said, I did have some level of confidence that this would work out. But yeah, it was. Listen, you always have to have multiple plans, and we knew that there was, of course, a possibility that that we didn't land one of the shortstops. So our goal was to do that, and I was glad that we did, and I'm glad I don't have to think about the alternative at this point.
So obviously you're not done, right? There's a little bit more to do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, certainly we have holes left on the roster. I think that it's fair to say that the big blocks are in place that we're going to add this offseason, but certainly We have some additions that we need to make to certain areas of the team, and so it's not going to be hopefully be a quiet Christmas, but it's not going to be a quiet Christmas break. We'll still be working, and it's been really nice from my perspective. It's been a really fast free agent market, which I think is just appealing for us. And this is what it used to be like, and then we had this 8-10 year period when everyone decided that it was. January was the new December, and we're all going to sign late. And so I think it's been a fast-moving market. I think it'll continue to do that. And I'd love nothing more than having a sense of all the pieces in place, or have the sense that we're pretty much completed by mid-January or so, because I do think that there's something to that as opposed to having players wandering in during spring training. I think this is a much better way for the whole industry to go about its business.
Jed, there was a report in The Athletic that there were internal tensions between the business and baseball sides over all of this stuff. It's some. I mean, I get it. The Crane came on, Crane Kenny came on this show, as a matter of fact, and talked about the money is there, but you don't maybe want that out there. What? I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times. What was your response to all of that?
It really wasn't. I mean, it was just one of those distractions. I mean, I talk to Crane 2 or 3 times a day. We have a great relationship. There's no sense of tension. And to me, I think that's kind of what I was even alluding to before, that, I brief those guys all the time on what's going on. And, Crane knew that, that Swanson we were in good position, that we were talking to them, that there was real mutual interest. And, there was never any sense of additional pressure or anything like that based on the comments. So, I felt like, so sometimes there's with these jobs, there's a soap opera element to them, and we have to do our best. We have to do our best to ignore that. But in the building, there was never any tension or any concern. And like I said, throughout the whole process, I'm talking to Crane and Tom all the time, and we have a great relationship. And I think we're all in this together. I mean, I think that, as you think about the organization, when, you sort of win together, and then when you have to, build things back, you do it together as well. And they've been really supportive, which has been wonderful.
Who is the replacement for Wilson Contreras?
I can't tell you that yet, but certainly, obviously we'll add a catcher here, hopefully fairly soon. And, listen, I think with Wilson, he provided great energy, and I couldn't say more about his, sort of work ethic. And, obviously he's a really, really good hitter. And, I don't think you necessarily replace each player, one for one, but we certainly have to replace his offense. And that's something we're working on.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Cody Bellinger project? Do you see him strictly as a center fielder? Is he going to cover a little bit at first base? How do you imagine deploying him?
You certainly could, but we imagine him could play first. We imagine him being our center fielder. And, for us, going into the offseason, you mentioned, adding one of the 4 shortstops. One of the things that we really, focused on is defense, and we had a, significant hole in center field this year. We felt like Cody was really a perfect fit. Left-hand hitting center fielder. He can really play defense. He's really athletic. Obviously Dansby, shifting Nico over to center provides tremendous defense in the middle of the infield. And, I always think that there's a lot of ways to do run prevention, right? And, I think catching a ball and, turning plays into outs is a big part of it. And I think when you watch a really good defensive team, I thought, we had a great defensive team, in 15 and 16, you saw the results. I thought, frankly, watching the Cardinals last year, they just converted everything into outs, and that makes a big difference. So that's really how we see Cody. Obviously, he won an MVP award in 19. I think with a shoulder injury, it's impossible to say what percentage of his struggles have been health related, which part are, getting into bad habits based on those health issues. But, that's our focus. Our goal is to get him back. And, I think we have a lot of optimism that, he's going to provide real value with his defense and his legs. And, we can get his offense back, I think that feels like a really great, mutual interest. Like he comes to Wrigley and really tries to get his career back on track, and we get a left-hand hitting center fielder that can really help us.
Yeah, it's clear you prioritized everything up the middles, and that includes pitching, and you added a starter this offseason. What's the best way to describe what more you're looking to do in terms of the back end of the rotation?
Yeah, well, we're in some discussions to add another starter, and then obviously in the bullpen, we need to add to the bullpen, and I do think we have a lot of really good young arms, both with our team and in the minors, and so I think that's a strength of ours. But providing some stability and some leadership back there is really important. I think that going entirely young in a bullpen can be risky. I do feel like bullpens are so incredibly volatile, and in my experience, I think it's really, really hard to go into an offseason and say we're gonna build the bullpen with multi-year deals and big contracts. I feel like I personally would much rather spend those dollars on things I feel like provide more certainty, frankly, and so we'll look to do what we've done, which is try to find guys that we think we can improve, guys we think that can bounce back or we can make some changes to. And I'm confident we can, with our young pitching and our infrastructure, we can build a good bullpen.
What was it about Jamison Taillon? Why did you make him a priority? And Craig Breslau going out there and meeting with him, he said that's the only executive that actually came to him, and they had I guess it was going to be 15 minutes, half an hour, and it ended up being 2 hours, and they got into all sorts of stuff. And obviously, Carter Hawkins had a connection to Dansby. How important are those personal touches, in your opinion?
I think they're really important. I think that with there are players that will sort of always go to the last dollar, and that's their right. But there's also players that are really focused on fit or places they think they can really improve their career. And I got the sense with Jamison, he was definitely in that category. That he loves Chicago, which I knew before that this was a really appealing place to him. And I think from really the beginning, I think we looked at the starting pitching market and we knew what we needed to improve offensively. And I feel like looking at where he fit in the starting pitching market, he was really kind of our main target. We like the profile. I feel like he's been in a major market. He throws strikes. You feel like he's got good stuff, and we knew he had great makeup. And I was actually really bummed I couldn't be at that meeting. I actually had COVID, and so I couldn't travel. But anyone that knows Craig Breslau knows that when he can really engage someone on pitching, he's incredible. And Jamison's really smart, really thoughtful on pitching, and I wasn't surprised that they kind of pitching geeked out for a bunch of hours, and I knew that went well. So I think those personal touches are really important. And listen, we meet with a lot of players. We don't sign all of them, we don't get all of them, but I think that even if you don't sign them, I think that reputation follows you. I think that maybe that guy tells a teammate that he really enjoyed it, or maybe that guy's a free agent 2 years from now and he remembers it. So, I mean, I don't only think it's about signing that particular player. I think that a lot of times it's about. I mean, you learn something every time, and I try to remember that too. That it's the what you leave that player with, and it's also what you gain. I mean, we met with a bunch of other players other than Dansby, other than Jamison, and I learned something in every meeting, and I think that's really valuable.
Is Kyle Hendricks part of the mix here, and where is he physically at this point as you start to take a look ahead to spring training?
He's probably in bed in Arizona physically right now. So he's in Arizona. He's been working out really hard with our guys there, which has been great. They've got a nice group there that's been working out at the complex every day. He's throwing, not long, not far distances, but he's throwing right now. Physically, he's doing really well, and I think this is one where we're going to ramp him up slowly, and our hope is that all the rehab stuff and all the strengthening he's done really takes hold. There's no way to know. I mean, certainly, I think we really want him to be a huge part of next year's team and going forward. I mean, he's as good a teammate and competitor as you're going to have. But of course, we also have to think about, if he can't. And I think that's our job is to, you have to build real depth, and we're going to have injuries. We're going to have, guys that struggle, and we have to be able to prepare for that. And I think last year through the farm system and then through free agency, we didn't do that well enough. And then early in the season, at one point we were down Miley and Smiley, and Stroman was down for a while. And that was really when we fell, way out of the race. And, that last year, I don't think we were going to compete for the division, but certainly we fell further behind 500 than we imagined. And that was really due to pitching depth. So I really hope Kyle is healthy and himself next year. That'd be wonderful. And that's our hope, but we also have to prepare if he's not.
What is the plan at first base at this point, Jed? Is it a multiple edge plan? Or are you working on it? Are you going to bring someone in? What do you think?
Yeah, certainly that's an area that we're working on and talking to a lot of people, and probably not a question I can answer today, but hopefully a question I can answer in January.
Is the closer on the roster?
Could be unclear at this point. Again, sort of the same thing. There's certainly, you guys are sort of hitting on some of the areas that we haven't addressed yet, and so we'd like to address some of those areas. How it comes together is. It's hard to know at this point. I think that's the nature of free agency. We're not the only team shopping, and probably some of the targets that we have will hit on, and probably some that other teams will outbid us, and that's just the nature of free agency. So, but certainly those are, the bullpen, first base. I'd like to get more left-handed if we can. Those are some of the areas that I think we do want to address.